Greetings. I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about ethics, law, and social control. And really, I think the first thing we want to ask ourselves, what are ethics? And how do ethics relate to laws, to morals, and to values? Especially, what is that connection between our values or societal values or professional values and codes of ethics? Certainly, we all have codes of ethics in the areas where we practice, whether it's law enforcement, corrections, research, counseling. And we often find that we have courses on ethics. So we're basically teaching ethics, often using case study analysis, ethical conflict analysis, surveys of professional groups, and also maybe bringing in a basic model where we look at the history of an ethical issue, the definition of the ethical issue under scrutiny, the understanding of the ethical issue as it relates to as many points of view as we can analyze, and then the possible actions or remedies to address the ethical issue, and then the outcomes of what we've done to alleviate the ethical conflict, whether or not it worked, it didn't work, or if it created new and unforeseen ethical issues. A lot of times, when we talk about laws and ethics and social control, the concepts of autonomy or our right to make choices, our privacy, our right to receive care and to be treated in an equal manner, the right that we have to expect others to do no harm to us, and also the right to expect others to be truthful and to be accountable are often discussed in the press and in social media and in ethical debates. Howard Gardner, in his 2008 book, Five Minds for the Future, talks about the ethical mind, focusing on formal education, core values of one's profession, support systems, transparency, and whether or not the ethical issue passes what he calls the hypocrisy test. Kidder, writing in 1995, a very, very long time ago, although I was teaching at UCF during that time, but think about what you were doing in 1995. The article, Tough Choices, Why It's Getting Harder to Be Ethical, I think is extremely relevant today and will continue to be relevant in the future. So I think Kidder was very accurate and insightful in this article, stating that we will face new ethical issues and moral intensity will increase. That we'll see new ethical issues in the areas of computing, medicine, the environment, and criminal justice. And I certainly would agree those are major ethical issues we face now, many years later, and that we will continue to face in the future. And Kidder also points out that we are aware of many more ethical issues that were previously hidden from us, and now we've become aware of them. And I think social media and the web in general has really led that with that idea of transparency. So is it harder to be ethical? That's the big question. Palm and Hansen, in their 2006 article on technology assessment, identifies several potential ethical issues with different technologies, and they have a checklist that they use, but I'll just sum that up. The dissemination and use of information, control, influence, and power, social contact patterns, privacy, sustainability, human reproduction, gender minorities and justice and international relations, and the impact on human values. So we can look at some of those areas as it relates to ethical issues in technology. Of course, justice is on there, so criminal justice does have one part of that big ethical picture, and it's important to look at how the pieces fit or don't fit together. Marx, in his book, Windows into the Soul, the one that we've really been focusing on the last 3 or 4 weeks, his 2016 book, has a chapter. Chapter 13 is titled An Ethics for the New and Old Surveillance. And I was extremely pleased to see that Mark's included an entire chapter on ethics and surveillance. And one of the things that Marx points out is that it is extremely difficult to apply one set of ethical standards when it comes to the analysis of surveillance. And he also has a lot of questions that we can ask regarding surveillance, such as what surveillance policies exist? Is the surveillance reversible? Is the surveillance under human review? Does the surveillance cross into intimate personal areas? Does it create harm and disadvantage for some individuals or groups? Do individuals or groups have the right to challenge the surveillance? And there's many more questions that Marx presents in his fascinating book. And so chapter 13 is especially appropriate for our discussion. And Berger and Gierveld in 2009, in their book In Praise of Doubt, How to Have Convictions Without Becoming a Fanatic, talks about that we just have a lot more choices and our boundaries become much blurred, and we kind of, it's a problem to have maybe too much doubt, but it's also a problem to have not enough doubt. And so how do we end up dealing with what we consider to be the truth? And really, I think what they get at here is, what is the healthy level of doubt? And then, of course, we have case study after case study as it applies to surveillance. What I'll do is I'll just mention a brief one because it's on my mind, because it's going on right now in my city, and that is that we just got new trash cans that are microchipped. Yes, so our trash cans can be found if they go missing, I guess. But also, some people are concerned that that they are going to be tracked. The weight of their trash, the types of trash, whether or not they put out their trash, whether or not they recycle. And then others have pointed out that the main purpose of the microchips is to increase the efficiency of the waste disposal company, to increase recycling, to be more effective in recycling, to also find out how we can do things better, how the company can do things better. And so again, there's that debate going on, and how do we balance that of having microchip trash cans. I'm just always waiting. One day I'm going to accidentally put an item in the recycling bin that's not supposed to be in there, and I'm waiting for a talking trash can to just say, hey, that's the wrong can. What are you doing? It goes in the other. Would that be terrible, or would it be good? I mean, how would you analyze a trash can that actually responded to the user with verbal material? I don't know. Anyway, some things to think about. I only bring it up because it became a debate and concern in the community. Otherwise, I would have probably thought nothing of it. But certainly, I think it's important to analyze all these scenarios. And this wraps up this video.